and welcome. I'm Harriet Agbenyi. Tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari returns to Nigeria after a 6-day visit to China as Nigeria turns down financial assistance from the IMF. The National Assembly says it is united in its stance on the 2016 budget. Channels Television and Deutsche Welle launch a joint production of an environmental program called Echo at Africa. And Pope Francis takes 12 Syrian migrants back with him to the Vatican after visiting a camp on the Greek island of Lesbos. On Business News tonight, FMDQ signs regulatory supervision agreement with National Pension Commission to protect investors.
And on Sports News, Rafa Nadal is through to his 10th Monte Carlo Masters final, following the 3-set win over world number 2 Andy Murray.
But the president is back in the country after spending 6 days in China to, among other things, strengthen bilateral and economic relations between the two countries. President Muhammadu Buhari was received at the airport by his Chief of Staff, Mr. Abba Kyari, and the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Solomon Arase. The president returns as the federal government says that it has not applied for an IMF loan because, according to the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, the nation is not sick. The finance minister told an audience in Washington, D.C., where she is attending the spring meetings of the IMF World Bank, that Nigeria has resolved to build resilience into the country's economy to hedge against future oil shocks. She adds that the nation is doing a combination of measures to diversify the economy. Last month, the IMF said it had again cut its growth forecast for Nigeria, predicting that gross domestic product growth would slow to 2.3% this year. IMF also hopes exchange rate limits imposed by Nigeria will be removed. As controversy rages over the passing of the 2016 budget, the chairman, Senate Committee on Media and Public Affairs, Aliyu Abdullahi, maintains that the Senate and House of Representatives are united in their decisions and that there is no disagreement between both chambers. Senator Abdullahi insists that both chambers agree that the Lagos-Calabar rail line project is important and something must be done to address its omission from the budget. He assured Nigerians that the National Assembly is committed to ensuring good governance in the country.
But we are humans. Where somebody has committed that error, they should own up. But if they are not owning up, don't take the blame and place it on some other people. So overall, let me be very clear, we are very, very united on this subject matter. We are not averse to that project, and we are in total support of that project. The question remains that, yes, it's been omitted. What do we do? I think that is where we should begin to put our energy. It's just semantics. So Nigerians shouldn't think we are on different page. We are not on different page. Remember, they said we will re-examine, but they didn't tell you how they are going to re-examine it. Did they? We want to assure Nigerians that it is our working together within us first, internally, that is within the chambers and between the two chambers. Our successful working together is key to the progress that can be achieved. Then the National Assembly and the executive, our successful working relationship is key to the progress that can be made. And I think Nigerians should help us to promote that rather than begin to throw issues that will rather create disharmony and divisions.
The Nigerian army says it has repelled an attack launched from the Sambisa forest by members of the Boko Haram sect. A statement issued by the Acting Director, Army Public Relations, Colonel Sani Usman, says the terrorists arrived with 5 gun trucks, motorcycles and 2 golf cars laden with improvised explosive devices from Sambisa Forest axis in an attempt to attack the 121 Task Force Battalion at Polka. According to the Army spokesman, Troops successfully repelled the attack and killed 7 Boko Haram terrorists, wounded several others, and recovered 4 AK-47 rifles, 3 AK-47 rifle magazines, and 92 rounds NATO belt ammunition. Elsewhere, troops of 3 battalions say they have caught a suspected Boko Haram spy near the battalion's headquarters at Gamburu, Ngala. As the internally displaced persons in Yobe State, northeast Nigeria, continue to return to their homes, the state government says part of their efforts to rehabilitate them is the supplying of food and other vital items. The state government is also concerned about returnees who have not had a source of livelihood for almost 3 years. The communities that have so far benefited from such relief materials recently include Goniri in Gujba local government areas, as well as Bularafa, Bara and Ngurum communities of Gulalin local government.
A sustained attack by the Boko Haram insurgents have kept these IDPs out of their homes for the past 3 years.
We need our school to be restructured, and also the issue of water is also very important. Water is life. Though the state government has repaired about 3 boreholes from last week up to today.
With assurances of safety by government and security operatives, these IDPs have braved it back home, and more are being expected. The Yobe state government has its job cut out, as these people have to be rehabilitated, having been on the run for 3 years with no source of livelihood.
There's voluntary return and there's dignified return. So already we have made plans for the dignified, whereby you can return those in the camps and those where government takes charge of everything. But when an IDP decides to return voluntarily, government also is obliged to come and support him. And this is exactly what we did today.
As the returnees go about resettling, the chairman of the local government area is understandably excited. He is grateful to security agencies for making it possible for his people to come back home, and the government for the repairs of boreholes, as well as the supply of food items and other vital materials.
Their aim is to come here earlier, is to get them prepared for the 2016 farming season. Now we are also calling on government to provide seedlings and some other farm implements to the people so that they can be engaged in their respective farms.
One thorny issue, however, is the level of devastation in this community by the terrorists. The orgy of violence by Boko Haram has badly affected buildings and infrastructure. A lot of rebuilding is required.
We are trying to get some exit packages for all the IDPs, whether in Damaturu or Kukareta or anywhere they are. But we are waiting for the presidential initiative, even if it means they will launch an appeal fund or using what they have in their kitty to also assist us to really assist these people to return to their various homes and do their various businesses within their localities.
On the flip side, those who have received food and other items are grateful for what has come their way. These palliative items have been deposited with community leaders who have been asked to ensure that they are evenly and equitably distributed.
I'm now being joined on the news at 10 from our Abuja studios by the former executive chairman of the Borno State Emergency Management Agency, Grema Teraba. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining me on the program.
Hello, good evening.
Now, how would you rate Nigeria's response level to emergencies that affect internally displaced persons?
Well, the issue of IDPs in Nigeria is so challenging and so pathetic, most especially in the northeastern part of the country. You can imagine where we have over 2 million displaced persons. About 20 local governments or so were affected, and towns were ransacked, mosques were set ablaze, churches were bombed, and marketplaces were deserted. So the situation of the IDPs needs tremendous effort from all angles. the federal government, the state, and the local government, as well as the NGOs. The state governments are doing a very little job there, while the National Emergency Management Agency is also complementing the efforts of the state governments. But what it should be done is that the National Emergency Management Agency should have a proper coordinating unit in all the local governments affected in order to close the communication gap between the local government, state government, and the federal government.
But Mr. Terab, have there been issues of having the roles of the federal and the state emergency response team blurred? And this sometimes prevents either groups from doing their duties. We've had situations where it seems as if both parties are coming in at the same time. Do you agree that there's been a kind of blurring of their roles?
Yeah, absolutely. There are duplicating roles and there are communication gaps. For instance, in Borno State, the MOU signed between the State Emergency Management Agency and the National Emergency Management Agency is that the National Emergency Management Agency will supply and provide the basic food items for consumption, while the State Emergency Management Agency will supply the food condiments and the management and upkeep of the camps. But to our dismay, you hardly find that the IDPs that are living within the IDP camps eat 3 square meals a day. So there is a serious communication gap between the NEMA and SEMA in various states.
Now, Mr. Terab, we don't have so much time. Even though we do not pray for disasters, how do you think Nigeria can be more proactive than reactive?
Yeah, the best way for Nigeria to be more proactive is to have emergency response centers in all the 774 local governments in the country, where we will close the communication gap. The number one key essence of emergency rapid response is to have communication. When the government is aware of any pending issue or a serious disaster that occurs, and if the communication gadgets are in place, and if the community are involved in all the local governments alongside NEMA, SEMA, and local governments, we pray that all the conditions of emergency disasters can be easily tackled in a serious means.
Mr. Grema Terab, thank you so much for joining me on the News at 10. In part 2, after the break, Channels Television and Deutsche Welle launch a joint production of an environmental program called Echo at Africa. Please stay with us.